All right. Welcome into the Questionable Podcast. You got Scotty Questions here with Miko.
What's good, man?
What up, man? Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. It's not a Merry Monday though, but Merry Christmas.
No, it's not. Happy Boxing Day. And we're also here with Gian. What's funny about that?
No, I'd completely forgotten all about it. Because like the last night of Hanukkah was on Christmas Day, actually, and then I'd forgotten all about Boxing Day.
Happy Boxing Day to you too, John. And I hope you had a Merry Christmas.
I did. It was great. My daughter's first. We just
nice
wrapped up a bunch of books that she already had.
That's the best part about having like small children. Like the first 2 years of their life, you can literally just re-gift them stuff.
Yeah,
because they don't know.
Yeah, I mean, she couldn't even she wasn't. I don't even think she was aware of what was going on. Like we opened them for her, but
well, right,
it was fun.
Right,
she had some cute onesies. She went through a couple outfits throughout the day.
Yeah, we did the same thing for my nephew.
Yeah.
We did the same thing for my nephew. Like my mom got him like an entire Marvel collection of onesies.
Nice.
So he has everything from like Spider-Man to like Captain America, tops and bottoms.
That's what's up right there.
So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, so having said that, yes, please, everyone, welcome in. We hope you all had a lovely holiday weekend. So please follow, subscribe, wherever you listen to podcasts. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. We have some new things coming, right? We're going to get on a new platform. Miko, thank you for organizing that. That's really exciting. So maybe next week we'll be
we're hoping that we can get this up and running next week. We will start streaming. So you'll be able to catch us live on YouTube and live on Twitch starting hopefully as soon as next week.
That is going to be very distracting for me. I will do my best.
Yeah, I mean,
I know who I am, and
the first day is going to be. I feel like the first couple weeks is going to be an adjustment period for us.
It will, but it will be fun. I'm excited about it. I think it's time to make that step. So anyway, yes. Again, please follow, subscribe, and thank you all for being here on this kind of sad Monday after the Lions get pounded by the Panthers 37-23. Not a good showing at all.
No,
not at all. We have some opinions, and I think ours are very valid, and I think they're a little bit different than the general take. So, Miko, I think I'm going to have you lead us off here in regards to the game on Saturday.
Yeah, and I'm going to start off with a disclaimer. So if you've been to this podcast before, if you've heard any of our talks before, especially early in the season, we weren't very positive because there wasn't much to be positive about. So if you expect there to be a lot of hey, look on the bright side of things, probably not going to be a ton of that in this podcast. However, that does not mean that we're going to sit here and call for people's jobs. I don't think anybody needs to be fired after this game. I don't think this game is somehow diminishes everything the Lions had done up until this game. It's a bad game, and we're going to talk about a bad game, and we're going to talk about a bad performance by a team that we love. So buckle up.
But we'll be fair.
I don't care if you think it's fair or not. Buckle up.
But we think it's fair. We think it's fair. We're fair.
We think it's fair. But end of the day, buckle up. It's going to be probably an uncomfortable ride. Some things are going to be said that you may or may not agree.
The Festivus airing of grievances is coming today.
And that's all it is. So, like I said, buckle up, jump in the comments, feel free to disagree, jump in the chat box while this is premiering, let us know what you're thinking. But at the end of the day, Scotty, John, this was just downright deplorable. This was disgusting to watch. I don't think I've been this frustrated with a game from the Lions this season since the Patriots game.
Yeah.
And the thing that was so disappointing about this game is that it literally was from the first possession. The first possession the Panthers had, you get 30-yard run. Next snap, you get a penalty. So they get a penalty. It's now 1st and 15. So you're like, oh, cool. The defense can kind of rebound from that, gashed run and, kind of galvanize themselves up together. No, they give up a 35-yard run.
It happened again. And then again and again and again.
And long story short, like you give up a touchdown drive on the first drive of the game in only 5 plays, and it didn't include a deep pass to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was gut wrenching because the thing that we thought this defense had at least had been doing really well these last few games was stopping the run. And for you to get gashed like that on the first series, A was definitely shell shocking, but at least I was like, okay, they'll rebound. They'll kind of get it together. And it never happened. Like it would happen in spots and spurts, but it was never happening consistently the same way we had seen it in previous games. And so by the time this game was over, I was frustrated like a lot of people were, and I was not happy and I didn't have anything good to say. But I think like I found myself like with more questions than like necessarily answers because it was just like they played terrible. I don't know why they played terrible. I would love for somebody to
Mm-hmm.
be honest and be like, "Hey, this is why we play terrible." But it really just like even when we were talking in our group text, it just felt like, "Hey, if you had to put your finger on something, what do you think it was?" And Scott, I know you and I were on the same page where it was like it kind of just felt like they probably like were reading their own news clippings a little too much, that they were starting to feel themselves a little too much, and they didn't show up to play. Like flat out, whatever the reason you want to attach to this, these guys didn't look interested in playing on that Saturday afternoon. No one looked interested, probably except for Jared Goff, because Jared Goff actually had a decent game, but it was like the most
And
empty.
Zilstra had
Zilstra
Right.
showed up.
Zilstra.
Goff
And
and
those that
Zilstra
had
showed up.
Zilstra in fantasy, they probably won their semifinal or
This is a
final in
galaxy brain
fantasy
move
with that,
there.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah, 3 TDs. Stop.
it just it was a bad game, man. Like, and it's. I mean, yeah, I'll say it was probably the worst all around team performance, but definitely the worst performance by the defense. I mean, you give up over what 500, 600 yards of offense to the Panthers. Like,
Well,
it's disgusting.
320 total running yards. Foreman had 165 and Hubbard had 125.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like for me, it was disgusting. It was hands down worst performance I've seen by this team, and I don't even know. I mean, yeah, close to 600 yards of offense given up, but yeah, like I'm disgusted. I'm disappointed.
So I want to
Five-
frame
570
this
yards.
570. I thought it was 550.
570.
570.
570.
Whew. Not good. So I would like to frame this disgust in a way that sort of facilitates discussion. So I've got a couple like topics that I've been kind of working around in my head. You hit on one of them. They just didn't show up, and you think that was because they were feeling themselves, like they were starting to like enjoy the smell of their own. They're getting high off their own supply.
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I pointed that out last week. And like that was, I hope they don't go that route because everybody, national media, right? We talked about this last week. National media, everybody's talking about them. And yeah, anyway, go ahead, John.
Oh no, I was just thinking. So I kind of made this point before the show that I think there is an argument to be made that it's very hard to win in this league. The Panthers were deceivingly good. Brian Burns is no joke. That their run game, when it works, it's devastating. And maybe we sort of underestimated them a little bit, but at the same time, we had the number one or top three offense going into this league. We had the number one red zone efficiency, at least coming into the game. And I was telling them before the show, like, I could buy that argument that it's really hard to win. They had an off game. It's Christmas. If it was like, if it was a close game, then I could buy that argument. But because, like Miko said, from the opening play, it was embarrassment. That doesn't really sit right with me, and I can't really buy it. Like I don't believe that. So like I don't know. I think something else is going on here, and I don't know what it is.
So I'm gonna hop in here. So this is my take on it. I've heard everybody, all the sides, right? Twitter's like Miko's telling me, Twitter's got one side, the other side, and it's all kind of tough in general. So, what I heard and like what I saw, in my opinion, I heard the Lions team before the game were complaining about the field and the conditions. They were complaining during the game, and then we heard Goff and others complain after the game. And even I've heard they've been complaining about it since. Now, what my thing is like the Panthers had to play in the same damn field, right? It was the same temperature for the Panthers. It was, to Dan Campbell's point, right? We'll play you on a football field. We'll play you on turf, grass. We'll play you in a junkyard. That was not the case, right? That was not the case. And
No.
whatever that was, and however the team did it, in my opinion, they talked themselves out of playing. I mean, they could have packed up and just like forfeited. Like I almost would have rather see that because they did not show up to play. They did not want to make hits. And this is me watching the game and then rewatching it again because I'm like, I don't believe this. And I watched it again. I mean, that's why Okuda was benched, in my opinion, right? He was playing poorly. But he wasn't tackling. He could have made a hit and he just kind of slid to make a hit. And my biggest issue with this game is the hard-nosed, gritty, tough Lions. Where did they go? And if they can go from that hard-nosed, gritty, like badass, tough as nails team to this soft team is what I would call them, because the Panthers literally just beat us on the line of scrimmage. They just pounded us. That's why I said they just hit us over and over. There's nobody want to do anything about it. They didn't. It was really hard to watch. Like a team.
No, yeah, it was
watching. Now, win or lose, right, John? I'd love to see it closer, and that was just terrible. I mean, they beat us off the first carry, Miko. Yeah, they ran it up our throat. Now, we tried to get back into it, and then we have a fumble from the snap. I mean, and I think that just that was, to me, kind of ended up being the game. Now, the Lions can come back. It's sure I was hoping, like, wow, we could string a couple plays together. Even with 7 minutes left, I'm like, all right, if we just get it together, but we couldn't. And I think we beat ourselves. I think that Dan's right. It is on him that, he a little bit to get these guys ready to play, but they have to be ready to play. And I do think it correlates a little bit with them reading their press clippings and starting to feel themselves. And like, we don't have to show up. We can just kind of go through the motions and we'll beat this Panthers team. We're supposed to beat. We're favored. We're just going to beat them. That was not the case at all. And the Panthers, they came off a big loss. We talked about this, a big loss the week before, and they got physical. They out physicaled us the first time this season. I think they've been out physicaled. Did New England out physical us? I don't remember if they out.
I mean, it was
out schemed us for sure. We got out coached.
Yeah, we definitely got out coached against New England. This was absolutely like welcome to Cell Block D. Bend over. Like, that's how the Lions got treated in this game. Like, Carolina just bent the Lions over, and it was, they have the adage, keep pounding, and it was like, yeah, welcome to Pound Town. And it was just
so. Yeah. Okay.
Wait. So hold on. So
let me wrap up my point. I just want to say my point, guys, and everybody listening, is my biggest fear is this drop off in that. And yeah, it's cold. Yeah, the field sucked, but they had to deal with it too. And we're gonna have to deal with that in Lambeau Field. And so, we'll be back at home. We'll talk about the Chicago Bears game. But that'll be a tough game. But if we can win that, I mean, all the marbles are going to be outside in the same temperature, if not colder and snowing. So I worry about that. John, go ahead.
Well, so I guess my question then becomes, do we think we've been talking about how this team has been playing kind of a bit above their talent level for several weeks now. Whether a combination of coaching and execution and buy-in and belief, wink, wink. So was this bound to happen? Was it like a down game bound to happen? Or do you think like we could have realistically kept it up and we just found it in? I guess I don't know.
Well, because I want to say yes, right? Because again, I do. I'm going to continue to like eye roll every time the belief thing comes up, because again, the idea behind what we thought was capable of them continuing to win was like, hey, the thing that's having them win is that they're doing their job. Like, guys are where they're supposed to be, guys are executing, play calls are working. Like, everything is kind of like working as a well-oiled machine. But this was a game where, like, Eric Schlitt over at Pride of Detroit had a great tweet where he was like, defensive line is getting pushed back and linebackers are being slow to fill gaps. That was happening on every single run play. And John, you and I kind of had like a back and forth in our group text about like whether or not they should have been like loading the box. And it's like, I don't think they were loading the box to stop any of the other run games that they had prior to this game. So I understand why Aaron Glenn was like, no, we'll stop them with this way, but you guys have to flow. You guys have to attack your gaps. You have to fill your assignments. I mean, again, going back to the first run of the game, Aiden doesn't hold contain. He crashes down on the line, which opens up the backside for Chuba Hubbard to go 30. If he's more disciplined in his assignment, that play doesn't happen. And so, yes, it's possible that they could have lost a game. It's if they were playing a better team, if I were to sit here and be like, I think Carolina is this much better, I don't think Carolina's 14 points better than you.
No,
Right.
I agree.
Like, and so this was execution. This was like Dan Campbell said to Steve Wilkes after the game, yo, that's how you kick the bleep out of another team. Like, that's how you do this. And I don't know. That's where I get really frustrated. Scott, I also wanted to go back to what you were saying about like this is on Dan Campbell for not having his guys ready. I feel like that's one of the like most cliche like coach terms, right? When coaches get blown out and their players don't look prepared, they have to fall on the sword and say, well, I have to get them more prepared.
Yeah, but that's why
But
I followed it up with like it's really the players. They have
and that's really what I'm gonna
yeah.
say is like, as much as Dan or these coaches are gonna want to sit there and say, well, I should have done this, I should have done that. I have a hard time believing that you drastically change up your coaching philosophy for the Panthers. Of all teams, you were like, no,
Right.
we're going to do something completely different
Right.
for the Panthers. The one team that we know what they want to do, and we've been very good at stopping. And I think there was a certain level of like, again, if I have to put money, if I have to put my finger on something to be like, well, this is what did it. It's a team that walked in there and believed that like, you know what, we can turn it on. We can show up whenever we want to show up. Like you pointed out, Jeff didn't want to tackle early on. None of the secondary players wanted to tackle early on. Your linebackers are missing tackles. And that is just like it's a mentality. We talked about this, I think, a couple weeks ago about this idea of being gritty and being tough. Like that is more of a mentality than it is necessarily like a skill set. You have to have the mentality that I'm going to hit you, that I'm going to physically dominate you. AG said it during the offseason in his interview. At the end of this day, this game is still about one man whooping another man. Flat out.
Yeah.
And this team did not show up ready to do that at all. And I don't necessarily think that's something that you can put on coaching when you're this far into the season.
I do. So I agree with that in terms of like the whole preparedness thing. However, I was reading a couple posts and a couple tweets by people who are more analysis minded than certainly myself, as I've never played the game. And I want to go back to AG in the run game. I mean, they're 0-6 when they rush for fewer than 100 yards. And I mean, this team, more than any that we've played, lives and dies by the run game. So it seems like priority number one should have been stopping the run. And I get what you're saying about how, you know, maybe we were stopping the run earlier in the season or even last game in the last couple games, Dalvin Cook, Saquon Barkley, with just the four up front. But then we get gashed that hard. Someone pointed out they didn't blitz. Like they didn't send an extra linebacker up front till the third quarter. They were still playing two deep safeties like until the third quarter. And until it was 3rd and 13, and then they come up and leaving the cornerbacks with Okuda benched and your Iffy and Kirby Joseph, 2 years experience between the two of them, basically like leaving them on islands on 3rd and 13 and 3rd and 13 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 that to me is just like head scratching, and where I kind of, yes, it was execution because undeniably these players looked flat. They looked
Yeah.
just they looked disinterested.
Mhm.
But at the same time, there were
I
some of
thought
these
they
things
had
that I've
the
been
game
reading
won.
about the lack of blitzing, about the, even on obvious run plays, they were still playing two deep safeties. And I don't know. So I like, again, I'm
It's
not
just
really
it's a weird, like I said, I think it's a really like nitpicky complaint because it's like you're complaining about them playing a style of defense that has been working. It didn't work in this one, but it's not the scheme. It wasn't the assignment. Like we can all agree, and you just said it, they looked different. They weren't
yeah.
executing, they weren't firing off at the same clip. So is it the scheme or is how players are firing off and executing?
Yeah. I don't know. I
Like I understand people want it. Like it's the same thing we were saying in week one when Jalen Hurts gashed us on running plays, and people were looking at Kelvin Shepard like, "Well, why don't you guys spy?" And he's like, "You say that like it's easy, like as if there's no downside to the spy. You
mm,
say that as if, well, that's the other thing too. You say that as if like offenses can't check out of a play. Like you load the
mm,
box, and it's just like, okay, well, hey, we have this many people in on the line, check to a pass play, and I'm going to trust DJ Moore to beat your corner, which he did. The one of the times that they blitzed, and they blitzed everyone. And I think it was a third down play, third and long. They blitzed everyone. And DJ Moore beat Jeff deep. Like, so this idea that like, oh, well, all you had to do was load the box. No, there's pros and cons to every style of defense. At the end of the day, though, whatever the defense that's called, you as a player are still responsible for executing your job and your cues. And that to me is the biggest difference from this game. Like, that's the other thing too. It's not like the run defense had been like kind of slipping the last couple weeks. The run defense actually was getting better
yeah.
week after week. And so then you got to this one and it was just like I genuinely don't know. Like you literally allowed another team to push you out of the way from beginning to end. That was the other thing that's wild about this is that you would think like, okay, after halftime, you guys would like get in the locker room and be like, yo, this is ridiculous.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
That was gonna be my next point, but go ahead.
And it's like, no, like you guys came out with the same idea of like, yo, I'm just trying to get to Christmas tomorrow. Like that's what it felt like as a fan watching
Yes.
was like everybody just wanted to get home and get some figgy pudding. Like nobody wanted to sit here and plug a rushing lane.
Well,
It was like I don't understand. And it's not, that's why it's so puzzling. Again, like these were some of the
Mm-hmm.
struggles they were having early in the season. And John, to your point, yes, we've been talking about like how the talent isn't necessarily there, but they had clearly like found a way to overcome that by again trusting the, like what Dan's always been saying, right? Trust the guy next to you, do your job, hold true to your assignment, all this other stuff. And I think again, being just watching it and being very transparent and being honest with yourself, you can be like, yeah, none of that was happening.
Right.
And Miko, to piggyback off that, and yes, like going into the locker room, you would think, okay, Dan Campbell, these guys are going to get it on track. They're going to snap out of it, right? Let's snap out of it. And they didn't, and they can't. And I think what you said earlier, being a younger team, you can't turn it on and turn it off, right? They thought they could turn it on and turn it off, and they cannot. I'm not sure what their practice looked like going into that week, but what Dan Campbell said is, didn't he say that it wasn't quite as sharp as what he'd like? So
I don't know. I know he was more so just like, yo, like
I
this
feel
is the
like
thing
I
that I
heard
love
that
about Dan.
somewhere.
I love that Dan is so honest with what happened with his team. He was like, no, we got our teeth kicked in. We got our
Right,
head kicked in this game.
right. So
And so
go ahead.
I
Yeah,
I think that can like help your defense. And when you put on the tape, it's literally just like Kelvin Shepard, AG just ripping into everybody because that's what happened. You
right.
got 2 feet in your chest on every single play. Like this is ridiculous. And we're talking a lot about the defense. The offense didn't help that much either. Like Dan kind of said that today in his press conference about how, and he's said this multiple times throughout the year, when one unit isn't performing well, it does become the responsibility of the other two units to pick up their play and to be better and be sharper and make something happen so that it kind of, balances out the performance of the team. The defense is struggling, and like I think it was Scott, like you said, you have a fumble on your second possession that could have given you the lead. You fumble that away, the defense gives up another score, and then you follow that up with a 3-and-out, and then I think another 3-and-out after that. Like this offense had 4 3-and-outs. It wasn't like they were consistently putting up points. Jared Goff had a great game statistically, but as far as like flow, the offense was very erratic. It was not that high profile offense that we had been seeing in other games outside of the Jets game. Like they were very much hit and miss.
I agree. I agree. And yeah, yeah, I go back. I am concerned. I think it is a young team. But I'm concerned with our identity, right? That's been our identity, right? Hard-nosed, tough, like we've been talking, Miko. At least if we're not going to get the assignment perfect, we're going to outwork you, right? Because we're not as talented as like we just don't have the players. We've talked about this. We have some players, we don't have all the players. So that's why I think the effort took us so far. And we didn't have that effort, that passion, that drive, that, that attitude. Our identity wasn't there. I mean, Miko, I just feel like you saying they want to get home for some figgy pudding. That really feels like what it was.
Yes.
Generally. Now, I think that's generally like, that's what you can't, we watched it, like I listened to it. I had to watch it. It was painful. I like, they just don't want to be here, and that's on them. And we can talk about 900 ways in which and why and how, but to me, the logical start of that is before the game, they complained about the field, and then they did that, but none of them changed their cleats. None of them adjusted for it. So like, not that even matters, but like, it was concrete. I thought you guys could play in a junkyard, I mean,
well, and I was going to say, like, you still got to play the game. You still have to go out there and
they were hitting the shit out of us. They were going for it. Like,
and that's my thing, right? Like Jamal got popped one good time. And it was like, I think that was when it really was just like, yo, they're like literally kicking the crap out of you.
Did we hear if he's injured at all? If we heard anything?
The players don't report till tomorrow, so we'll find out tomorrow if he's on the injury report for anything.
I just didn't know if they said anything. Like, I didn't catch it on the game because I watched it on the All 22. John, thank you for that. On the NFL,
Yeah, nice.
That is amazing to watch it. They show there's no sound to it, so they just show the game and all the play. They show it 2 or 3 different angles in each play. It's fantastic for those that don't know. The NFL app, NFL Plus.
Yeah, I can't remember if Jamal got back in the game after that, but
he got destroyed.
He did, and
that's the biggest hit he's taken all season.
And the one thing that I like to piggyback off of that you were saying about their identity, that is a concern as far as, can you still like muster up that mentality when pressure is high? Because it's not just being on the road. Like, you guys are in a pressure situation now where these games really matter. We went from early in the season where you guys were trying to find wins, and not saying that they didn't matter, but you were losing, and it was just like, okay, we're trying to find a way to win. We're trying to find a way to win.
Right? Yeah, but it wasn't. It was like you're going all out to get that dub. Like, and
now you're in a situation where the pressure is getting to the playoffs, where the expectation now is, hey, you can get to the playoffs if you do your part, which is another frustrating element from this game, is that the other teams that we needed to lose lost.
Yep.
Yes.
Like every other domino we needed to fall,
except for the Packers,
but we didn't necessarily need the Packers to lose.
No.
We needed the Commanders to lose, and we needed Seattle to lose.
Both
things happened,
and the Giants
Lions
lost.
And the Giants lost, and you couldn't
they were about to
carry
win.
your weight. You couldn't, like,
Right.
You couldn't do your job.
Right. And that's the thing that I've been loving that Dan Campbell was saying was like, hey, it's not about what other teams do. We have to do our job. So when you don't do your job, while you're not eliminated from playoff contention right now, the pressure is now like turned up because now you really can't drop a game. You can't drop a game to Chicago at home. And now you're probably looking at a situation where if you beat Chicago this week, you're in a do or die game
It's a
with Green Bay.
playoff game in Green Bay that you don't want to have because
With a guy who thrives in those moments.
Yep.
Or at least has thrived in those moments against you.
Well, he's been in those moments more than like Jared Goff. He's been in those moments more than a lot of people in the league. I mean, he wasn't a 2-time MVP for nothing. Like,
well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like the frustration for this game really is compounded with so many different things. It's their performance, it's fan reaction, it's implications on your playoff run. And then you can even sprinkle on a little bit the freaking Rams winning and ruining draft position. Like like this was just not a great weekend if you were a Lions fan.
I do want to say something about the Lions fandom and that a little bit. I just want to say I think that a lot of this is we've been used to losing for so long. We get a little taste of that like winning streak. And it's like, oh my gosh, it's like a kid with candy. You know, it's like when my daughter gets a whole bunch of just chocolate. So we're making candy houses this weekend and she loves little mini chocolate chips. It's like she found the bag and she looked at me. Put her hand, it's a big bag, and she found it. I'm like, Mom, don't give it to her. My mom, May gave it to her, and she put her hand in staring at me, rolled her hands through all of it to feel it, just to feel, then grabbed the whole handful like that. Then just for the next 5 hours was literally bouncing off walls until she's then screaming. Like, so it's like this high and then this low. It's like, guys, we got to get there. Like, I hear people talking dynasty on other programs. I hear people say, like, guys, it's like, what planet are we on? Like, let's take a breath, and let's like see what happens the rest of the season. Like, sorry, had to get it out.
No, I was gonna say I agree with you. That's been the thing that's frustrated me about the fan base is that you have people that are on one hand that are like, yo, this is same old Lions mentality, like Gion's tag says, fire everyone.
Sarcastic.
Same old Lions.
Sarcastic.
Yeah,
it's a joke.
He is being sarcastic. But you have people with that honest mentality. But then on the other hand, you have people that are just as frustrating to me that are like, well, you guys should have been like that. We should just be happy with the run we were on and that we shouldn't be critical of this performance. Like there is a happy medium between those two things, and it is criticize the game. It's just criticize the game, criticize the performance.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Sorry. I don't know if you were done.
No, go ahead.
Because I want to go back to what Scott just said about how like people were talking dynasty and I think we as Lions fans we're so starved for success. We're like that. The pretty girl with like insecurity, and like as soon as we start getting like affection, we're just like, oh my god, this is what love is. I'm in love. This is it. And like, because we're so starved for like competence and like you said, we started 1-6, but then we got a little taste of it, and we're like Super Bowl, dynasty, playoff. If all these chips run, that we can beat the Vikings, we can go to the NFC champion, and we're doing all this math and calculating, and I'm not gonna sit here and say like you have to be happy with where we're at, but I do think it is important, and I like because it is important to place this in context. And at the beginning of this year, we all said expectations, we are not there yet. We are in year 2 of a rebuild, and we had a solid draft class last year, meeting with like Penei Sewell and Amon-Ra. And now this year, it really seems like Brad Holmes hit on damn near every single pick. And so we'll see year 3. Like next year is going to be the playoffs year, I think. And I do think, caveat, we cannot come out slow next year. We cannot do that again. But that's another discussion. What I did want to say was, I do think we all said, I said between 7 and 10 wins. I think we're going to be right there. I do think we're going to beat the Bears at home. Green Bay is a toss up. So there you go, 8 and 9.
Sure.
And it at worst, or 9 and 8, and there you go. We're right between 7 and 10. And I do think we just lost sight of the fact that we are in year 2 of a rebuild. And I think
but see, so this is the thing. Like I said, that thought process pisses me off, because this is the thing. Because your expectations are allowed to change when behavior changes, right? Like, it's easy to walk into a season and be like, well, this doesn't look, because yes, objectively speaking, looking at this roster top to bottom, and especially how they came out within the first 7 games, no, this didn't look like a team that was going to make the playoffs. But then you made a run and you put yourself in prime contention. So this isn't me all of a sudden having lofty expectations. This is me reacting to the expectations that you have now presented to the fan base. So if I have an expectation that, like, hey, beat the teams that, like I said last week, that are just as bad as you or worse, beat those teams. This isn't like, you didn't get your doors blown off by the Bengals or the Chiefs. You got your doors blown off by a team that got their doors blown off the week before. That wasn't having a good season either.
You could have beat them, right? It's a team that you could beat.
Well, it's not a team. Again, okay, we would probably all say what? Derek Brown is probably better than any defensive tackle we have. That the Panthers have, like, their defensive tackle and Brian Burns are probably 2 players from their team that you probably would want, that you would take. Outside of those 2, anybody else you take it from the Panthers?
True.
Nobody. So again, they are on par, if not worse than you. And you allowed them
at this point
dog walk you.
Deontay Foreman. Sorry.
But like this idea of like, oh, well, you guys have or people saying that, like, hey, you have unrealistic expectations because you're upset that their playoff hopes may be dashed. No, it's an opportunity that is missed, because it's so easy to say, well, next year, you don't know what next year holds. You could go into the preseason of next year and lose X number of players to season-ending injuries, and now next year's out the window. The time to strike was now, and it's okay to be upset and to be frustrated, to be like, you guys let an opportunity slip. Again, it doesn't diminish what you've done to this point, but as far as playoff expectations, at least being able to capture that, yeah, you kind of are letting that slip through your fingers, especially if you can't execute this week. To your point, though, John, it doesn't diminish the fact that you went from 3 wins last year to now having 7 as of right now, right? They have 7. So, like, that doesn't diminish that. That doesn't diminish the growth. That doesn't diminish the fact that your head coach has shown competence and showed the ability to help this team improve. None of those things get thrown out the window. But when we have a performance like we had, it's okay to sit there and be like, you guys are kind of like pissing this away.
Right.
And like
totally,
Scott is and like Scott is saying, it starts to allow doubt to creep in, because it's like, you have to play 2 divisional games against 2 teams that you know very well, but that also know you very well.
Yeah.
Like, it's no longer as easy of a cakewalk.
Yeah. I guess my point was just like easily summed up, is like, they are who we thought they were at the beginning of the season. You know, it wasn't linear and it wasn't as expected. And I think, so I'm not saying, I would never tell anyone be happy with what you get, or, or use like, and yeah, expectations can change, but like the roster didn't. And so, yeah, I don't know.
Okay. So if I could use your pretty girl analogy, right? That's like being like
Higgers.
That's like all of a sudden, like, finding out that you're like, that's like all of a sudden someone showing you attention, right? And they're showing you how pretty, and they're treating you really, really well, right? And all of a sudden, out of the blue, they start treating you badly. But it's like, but wait, you were putting in all this effort before to treat me well and to be like above board with me. Why all of a sudden are you now flipping on a dime with me? Like that's what this is. Like the expectation didn't change. You showed me what it meant to be treated well. And all of a sudden you're not treating me well.
Yeah.
So like the expectation stayed the same. Like I'm expecting you to perform. I'm expecting like, and that's we've already said it earlier in the show. It's not like it was a back and forth battle, and like they just badly missed a field goal or they gave up a late field goal or something crazy like that. And it's not even like you didn't even have like mental mistakes. That's the other thing too. Like offensively, defensively, it wasn't like you were giving up a bunch of like crazy penalties and things like that. You were literally just getting stomped into the ground.
Well,
like I don't know how many other ways I can say that. Like that's
Isaiah
all
Bugs'
this game
penalty
was.
was stupid and emotional because he was frustrated when he tossed him.
What he should be. You're getting like
yeah.
He needs to be composed, but I understand the reaction. You've been getting your butt kicked for 3 quarters.
I almost thought too. I thought that was a moment in which we would rally. Like that was another moment. I'm like, yeah, Bugs, like get him. And now the team will wake up. I was just waiting for that moment for them to snap out of it. They never did.
Yeah,
they
true.
never did. And that, I think, again, like I've said, this from that drop off. If that is possible, that is what's scary to me. That's scary
because you don't have anyone. There wasn't that like pop of a play that you were like, oh, okay, now we're back in this. Like they never got a turnover of their own. They never got a big kick return. They never, I don't know, they never had like a big touchdown run or pass play. Like nothing exciting ever happened for the Lions.
Chark had 1 or 2 pretty solid catches, but nothing really happened, right? Typically, and Miko, to your point of that spark, I mean, that's Jamal. I mean, really, he's the one who's like, go, 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 go. And like Swifty should, I mean, the Swift would come out with those plays. Like, it's just there wasn't the spark. It goes back to our point of they didn't want to be there. That's what it looked like.
Yeah. I mean, it didn't. I mean, and again, hopefully they're ready this week for the Bears. I mean, are you guys ready to talk Bears? Because like I think we can continue hashing this. Okay, good.
Yeah. One last thing, and I want to again, it's another question back to you guys. Speaking of coaching and personnel, what do we think is the reason for Jameson Williams' continued limit? Because that's another talking point that's kind of been coming up, and I've seen a lot of people going both ways, and I don't really know, but I think it's a decent question because this whole philosophy is if you're playing to contribute, and he's going to get ramped up, and we don't want a re-injury, and I totally get that. But it's been about a month now. Like this is his fourth game back.
Fourth game back. Yeah, so it's been
and he's still on like a hard snap count. So like, do we think he is struggling, that he's not picking up the game as fast? Like, I don't know. I just want your guys' opinion on like what do we think is going on with not necessarily Jameson Williams, but like how the coaches are using him.
Like, what's the situation, or what our opinion is of the situation?
Yeah.
You want to go ahead?
Yeah, I just don't necessarily know if they currently have the plays in place for him.
Like the offense was built without him, and like now that he's
here. Like it's one of those things where Jameson does one thing really, really well, right? He brings speed. But I don't think like the way that they're comfortable using him, I don't think they have enough of those plays, right? Where it's a lot of like deep shots. It's a lot of, him streaking down the field, maybe running a deep post, running a deep corner. But like DJ Chark runs those routes really well too. Josh Reynolds runs those routes really well too. And so I just don't think, Khalif runs those routes really well. And so for whatever reason, those guys are getting those opportunities before Jameson. Now, Dan was asked about that today, and he kind of said fairly straightforward. I don't know if he was just brushing the question off or if he was being honest, but he was like, yeah, he'll get more snaps. Like, yeah, we're going to ramp up his snap count. He'll get more snaps. We'll see, but
right.
Yeah, you would at least like to see him out there. Now, with that said, it does not give me a lot of confidence when Jared Goff one-hops him on a comeback route that was barely 10 yards. Like, that doesn't give me a lot of confidence.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I saw that. Miko, I'm with you too. John, good question. I've heard a lot of different takes on this. Um, and what was interesting, a lot of people have been saying that we spent such a high, our second first round draft pick on him, like use him. It's like my point is like we spent that high draft pick, like be careful still. You know what I mean? Like a little bit.
Yeah, for we
Um,
spent it for 5 years, not
Right.
half a
So,
season.
okay, yeah, not for half a season. Now, I know we keep saying like now's the time to strike and do that. I have a couple thoughts on that. Um, you know, look at in a little bit with Aaron Rodgers and Christian Watson, right? How long that took for those guys to get on the same page. Like 8 or 9 weeks, right? This year for them to get something going, and still he's not crazy, but he's actually delivering in moments where Rodgers needs him. DJ Chark and Goff took a while to get going. So, throwing him in the mix mid-season, mid to late season, I think is tough. And to Miko's point, these other guys can run these routes and know the book inside and out. They have some chemistry with Goff. And yes, I think we should use JMO. Yes, I think they should have had plays ready to go for him. It feels like that they got him and then like, well, now what do we do with him? I think they should have had plays when JMO's in. These are his like 10 plays for JMO. Like we should have had those, and maybe they do, and they just haven't had the situation to run them. I question that, um, but lastly, I think he's going to play a lot this weekend. A, B, I don't think he played a lot this past game because it was cold on his terrible turf with it coming off an injury.
Oh,
If that turf
yeah,
is
that's
that
a great
bad,
point.
if that's concrete and there are people having like cleat issues and all that stuff, that is the last place I would ever want to play our second pick in the first round coming off a knee injury, like in cold weather. No,
Great
thank
point.
you.
I
Like
didn't
with
think of that.
my leg injuries, that is like an accident waiting to happen because it's so cold. Your body's still not completely warm. Let's say it's the beginning of the game or beginning of the second half. You don't know how do you stay warm if you're only running 10 snaps, 14. I mean, I,
Well, and
I
I think that's the problem,
that's
right? Because you see
no. I'm just saying the
the
weather
idea.
and that I'm saying that for this game.
Well, yeah, but I think like that's a problem with like how do you rectify like keeping him warm? Well, you keep him involved. Like you don't have him sitting on the sideline for 90% of the game.
No,
Like
no.
you throw him out there and because this is the thing.
What
The
I'm
routes
saying,
that JMO could be running, Khalif was running those routes. Like every
correct.
route that Khalif ran, you can't tell me that Jameson couldn't have ran that and probably could have ran it faster. I don't know about better, but he definitely could have ran it faster.
Right, I'm talking about legs getting cold off of injuries just when the defense is out there and you got to go back out. I mean, like I'm really saying that in that cold weather, that's what I'm saying. Not just like yes, I agree to your point. He plays more and all that. But what I think I'm trying to get to is I think they're going to play the shit out of him at home in the dome, nice and warm. He's going to get some run against Chicago. I do believe that because they've heard what everyone. I mean, I do think they're going to try and let him loose. I hope. I'd love to see it.
I mean, I think they're going to need it, right? I mean, again, you're in a pressure situation at this point in the season, and you need all hands on deck against Chicago this week because you're in a must-win situation where if you lose this game, I think you're out. So with that said,
agreed. Agreed. I think it's a must win, and Lambeau's a must win.
Well, no, Lambeau's absolutely a must win, but like I'm saying, like if they lose, like I think they are technically mathematically eliminated. Like they are no longer.
I think you're right.
So yeah, looking at the Bears, I mean, what's the expectation? What are you guys most concerned about? Let's talk about it a little bit.
Gian, you want to go ahead, or what do you?
Yeah,
what do you
I mean
wanna
it's
do?
the same as last time. Justin Fields. I mean, I don't know if there's another answer to that question. I do think they show up more. I think this is one instance where I kind of hope last week's or 2 days ago's performance was because they were buying their own hype, and then now they got a reality check slapped across their face, and they're like, oh shit, like we actually have to do our jobs. We have to do all the things that we were starting to take for granted. And I think that reality check could translate into at home just a ferocious showing. I think this is going to show. Scott, you say this all the time. We're going to learn a lot about who they are. Like, you learn a lot about what a team is, what a player is, and how they respond to adversity, to shots, and so I think how they respond in this Bears game, like if they come out and they're just ferocious and just do to Chicago what the Panthers did to us, then I think it's going to alleviate a lot of feelings. Maybe Justin Fields does have a great game, but it's very one-dimensional, like essentially like we did to Minnesota. We completely eliminated Dalvin Cook, and Justin Jefferson had a career game, but it didn't translate to points, and so we were able to beat them. So we forced them to be one-dimensional, and so maybe we force, like, Justin Fields, put the game on your back and beat our entire team. And
we have, I'm with you, and you're right. This game will show a lot, John. I was going to say that it will show a lot of what this team is, because I expect them to bounce back, and I expect them to bounce back in a big way at home. Last home game of the season, standing room only. We play well at home. I think Justin Fields is going to be a pain in our ass because he just is, and we don't do well with really mobile, strong quarterbacks.
We don't do well with pains in our asses.
No, nobody does. Not with Justin Fields. And so I think that that's going to be a problem for us. But I do think that we hopefully snap out of it, right? Because if we throw up another dud, that's just bad. And I don't think that will happen at home in Detroit. So I think it'll be closer than we want. Right now the spread is 5.5. Detroit. Detroit minus 5.5. The over under
really,
the over under. It's early though. It's early line. That'll change this week. And then the over under is 51.5 points right now.
I mean, yeah, it's Justin Fields, and it's Justin Fields by a mile. And I think this is the game that'll show us if they've figured it out. Have you figured out a way of containing these mobile quarterbacks? Because I'll tell you right now, I didn't know Sam Darnold could run, and so when he did it, I was like, that's a fluke, right? Like they just kind of took advantage, and then he did it again, and I'm like, okay, right. Yeah, I don't like this. I don't like this at all.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I think it's a situation. I was just looking at the box score from the Bears-Bills game, and they kind of contained Justin Fields on the ground. He had 7 rushes for only 11 yards. Like, I don't know what they did, but like, do that. I don't know if you have to switch up linebackers. I don't know if you have to, like, hey, Derek Barnes, you're not active this week. We're gonna put in Jared Davis. Like, I don't know what the magic formula is, right? Kelvin Shepard said spying isn't the answer. Fine, if it's not spying, you got to do something.
Yeah,
you have to figure out something, because I think if you allow Justin Fields to run inside on turf where he's going to be more dangerous, then yeah, you're going to allow Chicago to hang around in this game way more than he probably should. But if you find a way to contain him, keep him in the pocket, I don't know if that's like, hey, you're telling Aleem and Bugs, like, hey, don't worry about trying to like rush the passer, just like kind of like contain. I don't know, but you can't just give him free reign. Because I think that's going to spell doom for your defense.
Do we want to do predictions? And I agree with you, Miko. Those are all good.
That 5.5 surprised me because
it's an early line. It will change. It will go down probably. Depending on who's injured tomorrow, right? For the injury report.
Sure. Yeah. Obviously, injuries are going to change things. I mean, I would still expect the Lions to be favored, because, I mean, Chicago's been gutted defensively. They're not very all that strong offensively these days. I mean, obviously, like, again, it's Justin Fields and those running backs. So it's
I think
contain the running backs and contain Fields.
Yeah, I think they'll tease it at 3.5, make you decide if it's going to be a field goal. Or, you know what I mean? I think they might get it down there to get you to bet one way or the other. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll go 24-20 Lions.
Woo!
I gotta trust my eyes these last couple weeks, and I haven't liked what I've seen.
I'm gonna go 27-24 Lions.
Oh, I'm going 27-21.
Oh,
because I don't like. Well, because I also don't like the Bears as gutted as that defense is. I noticed like on the ticker on the bottom of Saturday morning, they held the Bills to 14 for pretty much like 3 quarters.
Mm-hmm.
outside of
I didn't
Chicago,
like that.
snowing, freezing. It was one of those
Oh
games.
yeah,
Yeah, so
but
that's
still,
another
I
thing.
mean, you'd think Buffalo of any of the teams, Buffalo, Green Bay, and Chicago would be the most like resilient to weather. Although
Yeah,
does
I
Buffalo
mean,
play in a dome?
no, Buffalo
No,
plays
No, they don't
outside.
because they had to
They were
move they had to move the stadium. Jeez,
no,
scratch that. Edit that out so I don't look stupid.
and Kansas City plays outside. I mean, they
Yeah, but Kansas City's like style of play is not conducive to cold weather.
true, but they have some crazy late season games.
Yeah. Well,
Like
and they
the
also have
last-
Travis Kelsey, which kind of makes everything
Yeah, right.
easier.
I mean, that's just it. It's like a unicorn.
But yeah, I feel like this is the game where you have to try and get the run game back on track. And based off of Dan's
Please.
press conference,
Please.
it sounds like that's also going to be a focus, is getting the, because it just hasn't been good, which is funny because we talked about it a little bit last week about the run game struggling. And I was glad somebody asked about it, because the fact that Jared Goff led you in rushing with 15 yards,
Yep.
Yes.
We
is
had
a
a total of
problem.
we had total of 45 yards. Lead rusher Jared Goff with 15 yards.
and I'm sure part of that is obviously because you were playing from behind for so long.
Yeah, they had to throw it.
But it's still, even watching that game, going back to the Panthers game, one thing that did kind of seem very odd, and John, you kind of pointed this out as well, as far as like having a problem with the play calling, it just doesn't feel like they have the same emphasis on running the ball as they do throwing the ball these days. And that's a problem for me. Like, we can sit here and all kind of agree that from a very blanket slate, like, yes, Jared Goff is playing better. I don't think he's playing well enough for you to be like, well, we barely need a run game though.
Right.
Like that,
A
that I
thousand
don't.
percent. Well, I mean, he's not the guy that can put the team on his back and like win the game, right? I mean, he's not that guy. He's never been that guy. He needs that support. We've talked about it, right? Like Gurley, he had Gurley, and we had a great running game, and like all the John, what was it? Orlovsky, breaking it down. Jared Goff in play action gets him in rhythm, and so when when they bite on the play action, the bite on the run game, then he has more time. He can assess the field, go through at least two two reads, and not quite get to his third or fourth, but that's fine. So I think that's a big part of it, right? We don't have a run game. You ain't running it. I know you're throwing it. That's why I feel like they were hands up, playing volleyball with the football.
Hold on. That was another part of that game that like kind of went under the radar. He had a lot of passes batted down.
But that's
Yeah,
my point. I think it's
is that
of
because he's just staring his guys down and like they just know his rhythm?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
because there's tape on it, right? Like even Orlovsky last week, look at here, Jared Goff in rhythm in the play action. So they stop the run. Okay, so he's not doing his play action. He's got to drop back, and he's one or two reads because he doesn't have his rhythm to get to the third. And so they were there. Like,
I mean, yeah, it's kind of like you can tell
My
by like,
opinion.
you can kind of tell by dropbacks too, right? Like
Okay.
the number of steps they're taking in a dropback typically gives you an indication on like how quickly that ball is going out. So if he's doing straight dropback, 3-step drop, probably a quick route. You're looking at slants, you're looking at curls. You're rarely 3-step dropping, throwing a deep ball. You might throw a fade off a 3-step
unless
drop,
you're
but again,
Mahomes or Rodgers.
right. And
or
so,
Paul
but then, yeah, the
Allen.
rest of it is just watching the eyes of the quarterback. And so, if you've been doing your film study and you've been like, paying attention to what this quarterback's tendencies are, if you know that, like, hey, on 3-step drops, he probably only goes through 2 reads. All right, watch his eyes. If he goes to his first read and he doesn't look like he's going to throw it, be ready to have your hands up because he's going to his second one and he's probably going to throw it. So, if you can bat it down, bat it down. So, yeah, it's concerning, but again, Jared Goff was the least of my concerns in that game.
Mhm.
He didn't help a ton because again, 3 or 4 3-and-outs is not helping. You needed to really like match points, hold serve, and you didn't do that enough.
Yep.
Yeah, great job, guys. We did it. We
Um,
did it.
I know. I hope to see JMO this weekend.
Yeah.
See it. I mean, that would be fun. Change it up a little bit. Get
Well,
him warmed up for
I think
Green
it's a
Bay.
game. I think this is a game where you got to come out firing, right? I think like these next two games, not that you want to like get away from again what you've been doing that's successful, but the fans, and again, this is not necessarily a shot at you fans that are saying this, but like you fans that are like, hey, we should be happy with the fact that we even won this many games. You as the team has to realize that they still have an opportunity available to them. And so you have to play towards the opportunity. You can't play as if, well, hey, we've done better than we did last year. Like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
seize the opportunity because you don't. You don't know what next year holds. Some of you guys may be on this team next year, some of you won't.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And the home game, last home game of the season, Lions like to get up and get going for the home games. So
Yeah.
I expect, right? I expect the players to be
I
okay.
expect the players to show up and I expect them
Yeah.
to redeem themselves from the performance that they put on because there's no way you play like that at Ford Field. Because
No.
you
Right.
hear it.
No, and
Yeah.
the only other thing I would say before we wrap it up here in regards to this game is like if I'm gonna drop a game out of these three, I would drop that one and not the Green Bay one. Not that if I had a choice, right, to snap to hit the kids in the back of the head and be like, hey, like we got some work to do here. We're not in the playoffs. That we could silver line, like that could be a good wake up call because I would rather have that game this past weekend than in Lambeau Field at the like if they're ever going to do it, and they better never do that again, like with that effort, and I we'll see, but goodness, like get that out of your system. Let's move on
Well,
here.
that's kind of what I was getting at with this. Was this bound to happen? And if it was bound to happen, I think it better to happen against the Panthers than division games and last game of the year at Lambeau.
I think, yeah, I agree. Better never to happen, but yes.
I mean, yeah,
I
but I
would've-
mean that's like saying
I would have rathered it happen after you were kind of already like firmly in playoff contention.
well,
like,
I mean,
like that's
let's-
just like because that's the thing, right? Like they win, and I think they would have been the 7th seed as of today, right? Like
I'm
they
not
still would have had to win out to
sure.
hold that spot, but like
correct.
Yeah.
Depending
that's
what
all
else
they
happens.
needed.
Right.
Yeah, like they just needed to win and then win out. Now I think
They
you
gotta win out.
technically need the Commanders to lose again. You need Seattle to lose again, and
I
you
think
have to
that's
win
it.
out.
And
yeah,
beat
you have to
Green
win out.
Bay,
And yes, Commanders and Seattle have to lose one.
right?
And Commanders isn't looking very likely. They play the Browns this week, and then they play a Cowboys team. I think they play the Cowboys or the Eagles that probably won't be like that won't have their
Yeah.
starters in.
Seahawks play the Jets and the Colts.
Yeah, that's not like
Right.
Yeah.
And
Those are
then
50-50.
Packers play Vikings this weekend
Yeah.
in Green Bay.
Oh,
so.
wow.
So looking ahead, and we can wrap it up. Like this will be the last thing.
Yeah.
If they end up getting eliminated this week, or let's just say like things like let's say they get eliminated after the season, like the season plays out, and let's say they still win out, but like the other chips don't fall their way,
Oh,
will you be disappointed?
I'll be pissed about this Panthers game. Yes, because they didn't even show up. They didn't even like that. Then you're out. I mean, and then you look at earlier in the season, it's just that's hard for me to swallow because yes, it was better than our expectations and how many games we thought they would win. But to
Mhm.
your point, Miko, of like, I mean, you're making a run and you can beat these teams. So that Minnesota game will haunt Dan Campbell for the rest of his life. There you go.
The ghost of
Yeah.
Christmas Christmas
I
past
mean-
for Dan Campbell. No, so to answer your question, I think that's a really good question because like I'll be frustrated, but I don't think I'm with Scott where I'll be pissed because then if you start getting into that, then you can do that for literally any game of the season. And then you get into this butterfly effect, chaos theory, insanity, where like, well, and then you can literally do that for any game, as because we lost so many games by like 3 points or less. Like, well, what if the Seattle game was 48-45 or something? And like, well, what if that one went differently? And then what if this one? Then you're just living in this hypothetical world of where everything goes right all the time, always.
The hypothetical question.
And but I do think at the end of the season, if we do win out and we look good winning out, like it's not some fluky, situation. Like it's not it's not the final drive of the game and we are gifted 2 blatant phantom hands to the face penalties and gifted with a free play like after time expires and Jared Goff throws a Hail Mary that just happens to be caught in the end zone. It's not one of those situations.
Yeah, like who knows?
Hypothetically, it's totally, making this up as I go along.
Sure.
No, if we show up and we do our jobs and we are okay, but we don't make the playoffs, then I think we can sit back and we can okay, last season we were 3-13-1 and this season we're 9-8, going in with 5 picks in the top 75 in this draft. The future's bright.
So I agree with both of you, right? That I think like one half of me will be looking at the season like, well, hey, they improved, future's bright, all that stuff that John just said. But no, I think I am going to be pissed because it's this game, right? Like, to your point, John, I understand what you're saying, that it's like a butterfly effect thing, but none of those games had the same weight on them that this game did. And this game had the weight on it where it's like, if you win this game and you win out, you're in. And it wasn't that you didn't just like lose like a gut wrenching, like you got blown out, you got manhandled, and that'll be the thing that'll piss me off. Yeah, that'll be the thing that'll piss me off for a while, like where it's just like that's an opportunity missed. It's a huge opportunity missed, and it's too easy to say next year. It's too easy to be like, well, we have next year, because guess what? Your schedule's also going to look different next year. So you don't get the same lineup of teams. Like you may not be playing the worst teams in the divisions, because based off if the Lions went out and they finished second in the division, that's who you play. You play the second best team in every division that you'll be matched up against. Like,
yeah.
I didn't know
so you don't.
Yeah, and I think if we take it one step further too, I mean, I don't want this team to, in moments, right, that count, are they going to win or are they going to lose, right? Like this was a game that was, right, you win this, you're in the driver's seat. Didn't even show up to it, right?
Yeah.
And so are we the team that when we get right to that level, right, success or not, playoff or not, are we going to take that step? And maybe not this year, and I mean hopefully next year, but maybe, I mean, I don't want to get stuck in that gray area where the Lions used to be, right?
Yeah. And just to clarify what I was saying about as far as like how they match up, like again, we got matched up against, we had to play the NFC East and I mean not the AFC East, the NFC East. So we had to play all of those teams. But then like any of the other teams in the other divisions, like we played the Jags and we played a team from the AFC South, but we played the worst team in the AFC South because we were the worst team in the NFC. Like, so you start getting matched up with those other bad teams. It won't
like how
be
Kansas City had like the hardest schedule.
Right. Because if you're the top team, you get matched up against some of the top talent. Now you'll still have to play like that entire division, but any of the other division, like any of the other games you have will be matched up against the number 1 seeds. So if you're the second seed, it's kind of quirky. I don't know. It's always easier in like basketball and hockey where you just play everybody.
Well, I think I can kind of wrap us up with this. At least we're not talking right now.
No, but we might be next week.
No, that's fine. But we, like last year, we were talking draft like end of
All
November.
December.
So like, you know what I mean? Like at least, hey, baby steps.
I can't wait to talk draft though. I can't wait to like. I haven't done any draft research, but like I can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, but hey, we're playing still some meaningful football. The end of December,
No, and
yeah,
that's
we'll
a
see when
and
that-
that's again that's a plus. So
Yeah.
please
So, all right,
don't yell us in the don't yell us in the comments. We understand that there is still good things to look forward to. This game sucked though, and I'm not going to say otherwise.
It did suck. I'm with you. So I think that's it, fellas, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
All right. All right. Well, again, thank you all for listening. Please like, follow, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube, please. Again, I want to thank you, boys. Thankful for both of you, Miko and Gian. Want to thank my family, crew. My sister was in town. It was great to see her. Thank for all the holiday wishes to everyone. And yeah, Miko.
Oh yeah, got to give a huge shout out to my girls. It was great being able to spend time with family over the holidays. Like always, shout out to everybody that's watching, everybody that's commenting. We love the good, the bad, the ugly. It brings the best out of us and out of our show. So, and look forward to seeing you guys on live streams starting in January. So we're
Live
excited to
on
be able to do
Saturday
that stuff.
night.
It's a late stream too, so it's something that you can cuddle up, all nice with, and then yell at your
Yeah.
device.
We're gonna have to ask how
Right.
many drinks you've had, and how many drinks have you had tonight, sir?
I mean, sure,
Comments. On the
2 drink
comment.
minimum.
2 drink minimum to join the stream.
Yeah. It's a good comedy club.
Oh boy.
But yeah, man.
Gian?
Thank you. For those who are just tuning in. Oh my god.
Got him.
For those who are just tuning in, my Fire Everyone SOL banner is sarcastic. If you only see this part, no, it is. But thank you to you guys. Thank you to my wife and my daughter. She's babysitting right now. My daughter's babysitting my wife right now.
Nice.
That's how it
And
goes.
so yeah, and then the cat's supervising everyone. But no, thank you to all of them. Thank you to family. We had just an amazing Christmas. It was very small, but it was lovely. We just had friends over who weren't traveling because, like, in LA, everything it's such a transient city. Like, everyone leaves for the holidays. Like the roads are never clear. It's amazing. It's like a post-apocalyptic movie. But everything's open. Like, you can. There's an old Patton Oswalt joke. Like, it's like the day after. It's like 28 days later, but you can go buy a sandwich and like and but so it was great. So we held a little small gathering for friends who didn't leave. Christmas Eve and then Christmas Day, we just had father-in-law over. It was just fantastic. So yeah, thanks to family, thanks to friends, thanks to fans,
Heyo.
thanks to commenters, posters, and you guys.
All right. Thanks, Gian. All right, you guys. Appreciate everything. This is the Questionable Podcast. Out.